Hi, Dr. Burgel. Back from my second study abroad trip and finally settled back into normal life again. And I'm excited to share some observations and reflections about our trip to Portugal and Spain. So, I always go into international trips expecting to stand out as a US tourist. I was afraid of this in Portugal and Spain as well. However, both countries seemed very laid back and were, for the most part, very friendly towards Americans. Study abroad in Italy taught me about how European people dress in their daily lives. Portugal and Spain did not feel as high end as Italy, but the nicer dress was definitely still there. Overall, though, I don't feel like we completely stood out in a crowd. There was a really large mix of people from varying backgrounds and ethnicities throughout both countries, which was really appreciated and gave the trip a much more relaxed feel. When it comes to the work ethic, in Portugal and Spain compared to that of the US. I knew going into this trip that the work ethic in Europe is generally different from that of the US. So, people in Europe, especially in Portugal and Spain, tend to be more laid back and move at a slower pace than we do in the US. This trip was really the first international trip where I got to see that firsthand. So, most of the business visits were really laid back and did move at a slower pace. In a few visits, we had to stop the speaker or remind them of the time. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure they would have kept talking until they were completely out of things to say. In the US, we are always on such a time crunch, which sometimes doesn't give ideas and discussions enough time to fully develop in one sitting. So I think the workflow in Europe is definitely better than what we do here in the US. Overall, I found all of our business visits to be really informative and interesting. I especially liked the PwC visit because I felt like it really painted a good overall picture of Portugal and its economy and driving factors, which was really great to hear early on in our time in Portugal and helped frame the rest of our time there to better understand the culture and the people. Overall, I thought the business visits were great and the people who gave the presentations were very knowledgeable and easy to talk to. So, concerning transportation and the ease of getting around in both countries, so Lisbon had a lot of hills and it definitely felt more spread out than Barcelona, which made using Uber a must during the end of our time in Lisbon. We had some really interesting Uber rides. I will never forget riding in the front seat of our Uber in Lisbon, navigating through these tiny, narrow streets, almost hitting people crossing the street. Our Uber driver trying to make a tight turn in this little narrow street and scraping up his car bumper on a wall and then just casually driving off. It was definitely a fun adventure in Lisbon. Overall, Ubers and taxis were very easy to find and use in Lisbon. Barcelona, not so much. In Barcelona, there was a waiting period before you could book a car with Uber. We found we were not able to immediately book cars on the app until we were fully vetted as an actual human being on the app. Once we could book rides, they were frequently canceled or hard to find or took too long to arrive, so taxis definitely seemed to be the way to go in Barcelona. I also found Barcelona to be more walkable than Lisbon. Our hotel was closer to things to do and see, so it was easy to walk to everything. And the public transportation in Barcelona was great and really easy to use as well. So, concerning communication in both countries, again, I go into international trips with the stereotype that people don't speak any English at all in other countries. But once I arrive, I'm quickly reminded that English is a global language, and most people in other countries not only know English, but they know several other languages as well. So most of the people we talked to in Portugal and Spain also knew English and multiple languages. In Barcelona, I could understand a little bit of Spanish. The Spanish that we learned here in the US seemed to translate over to Spain for the most part, with just a few words being pronounced differently. Also, everyone told me that I would hear Barcelona referred to as Barcelona while in Spain, and I only heard like one person refer to Barcelona in this dialect, so that was really interesting. Concerning the food in both countries, I had no expectations for the food in either Lisbon or Barcelona. I didn't feel like I really got a good grasp on the one or two things that either country is well known for or what they do best while we were there. The food in both countries was kind of bland and really heavy on the seafood and pork. In Barcelona, I tried some new types of seafood. I ate a lot of very interesting tapas, which I really liked because you could try a variety of things without committing to big portions of one thing. So overall, the food was okay in both countries. And I have to give a wine review. So in Portugal, I discovered a wine that I'd never had, green wine. It was kind of tart and dry, but I really liked it. Overall, the wine in both Portugal and Spain was pretty good. I really enjoyed our visits to the wineries in both countries. My favorite was the Cava winery in Barcelona. The Cava was amazing, and that wine cave tour on the train is something I will never forget. So just some closing thoughts. I really enjoyed the planned visits on this trip. One of my favorite things we did in Lisbon was the sunset sailboat tour of the Tagus River. I think ISP could make that into an optional experience, and it would be really well attended. The sailboat captain and his crew member were also very attentive and knowledgeable about the things we were seeing while we were sailing, and it was just an overall really beautiful experience. I really enjoyed the day trip to Montserrat in Barcelona, despite our tour guide being very chatty. And overall, I really enjoyed this trip, and I really enjoyed the chance to travel on my own and be free from work or any family pressures for an entire week. These study abroad trips are always a really good balance of time for educational activities as well as fun activities, which I really appreciate. And I always learn so much about myself on these trips. How to navigate another country, how to use international electrical outlets, the process of getting through multiple airports on multiple flights, how to find transportation, the importance of walking everywhere, and how good it makes you feel when you come home. My next international trip this year will be to Bulgaria in Eastern Europe, but one day I hope to go to Africa, Australia, and Iceland. But regardless of the destination, I feel like these study abroad trips have turned me into a really well-rounded international traveler, and I am so grateful to get to experience and see so many beautiful things and meet some great people along the way. So hopefully I'll get to do another study abroad trip in my master's program. So until then, take care.